In the middle of every seminar, whether in person or online, I usually like to take some time to address some of the primary concerns of the attendees, whether it be just simple concerns, misunderstandings, or myths. For the past year and a half, one of the primary concerns has been the economy. Well, that's justified, so let's take a look at that. For the purpose of this seminar, I'm actually referring to a New York Times article that stated that as of August 2009, the unemployment rate in New York City reached 10.4%. Well, that's rather high. If you take it in simple numbers, that's approximately 821,000 people. The problem is that when we hear this number, whether we see it on the news or read about it in the paper, we fail to take that number and connect it to the actual number of people that reside in New York City itself. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, there are approximately 8,241,000 people that reside in New York City, if not more. When you look at the unemployment rate in that sense, it's not all that scary, is it? When it comes to the economy, I think it's pretty much safe to conclude that there are still in fact quite a few people that are employed, that are in need of childcare, and that can definitely use your services. When it comes to dealing with emotional obstacles such as fear or even bad habits like procrastination and laziness, I always say to people that fear is justified. It's understandable, but you shouldn't let the fears get in your way of getting started. Why? Because the thing to be most fearful about for most people is usually the first step. Now, when it comes to getting started, in the next topic, I'll offer you more than enough ways for you to get started with assistance, step by step, hand in hand. And once you take that first step, everything else usually falls into place. When it comes to laziness or procrastination, I usually say that regardless of whatever industry you're getting into, those are just bad habits that you have to get rid of immediately. Why? Because procrastination and laziness, once they start to fester into your system, they're usually hard to overcome. I've once had somebody tell me that she didn't think today or tomorrow or even the next month or so would have been the right time to get started because she was in the process of transitioning between homes. Now, she thought she was in a pretty bad position, but I disagree. I actually felt that if she had actually decided that she wanted to get into this business, she would be in a good position because now that she has decided she wanted to get started, she would be able to not only look for a home that caters to her personal needs, but her business needs as well. Now, this attendee went ahead and took this advice, and this is where she's at. She's not only decided to get started, she's taken the first initial steps, whether it was training and ordering her application packet or whether it was incorporating a business and all that it entails. Her plan is to make it so that she has every other step out of the way, and then she's going to use a portion of her tax returns to not only get a space of her own, but to buy the supplies that she needs to get started. For those of you who may need a lump sum up front, I would say that that wasn't necessarily a bad idea. I myself needed a lump sum up front, and I told you what I did. Now, the thing is, you have to understand that if you are in fact deciding to get started, this is something that you need to act on now. Whether or not you decide to get assistance doesn't matter. You may decide to do this on your own, but you need to understand that when it comes to this industry and starting a program, it's not something that you do overnight. It's like a seed. It needs to be planted and then it grows. For other people, their primary concern has usually been something along the lines of maybe they're moving out of the city. Well, that's okay too. The only problem with that is, for the most part, when I ask them when, they usually say, oh, within the next 2-3 years maybe. Now, this is the thing with the maybes. The maybe means that it's not a definite. And if it's not a definite, why would you cut out 2, 3, or possibly more years out of stepping into such a lucrative industry if you decide this is something that you want to do? In addition, I always say, well, it's okay to move out of the city. I personally, may decide to leave New York City in itself, but I will not be leaving the program. If I was leaving the city, I would actually be running a program here as well as building a life somewhere else. And that's okay to do. Think about it. The thing is, when it comes to getting started, a lot of people have misunderstandings and they have myths and they have concerns. And then there are just flat out excuses, which we just discussed. When it comes to the myths, those are already a barrier in your way, because the truth of the matter is, if you don't know something, then you don't really have accurate information to act on. For example, some people are under the impression that you actually need a degree or to own property in order for you to get started, both of which are very inaccurate. I myself do have a degree, but it was not in fact needed in order for me to get started. As a matter of fact, when I started, I did not have a degree. The second thing, owning property, that too is inaccurate. Just to let you in on a secret, I actually started my program and was running my program out of my one-bedroom apartment. How? I simply sold the living room furniture that I had and used my living room space for business purposes. So you see, when it comes to dealing with the myths, the misunderstandings, and your concerns, it's primarily just doing the research. In this case, I've brought a lot of the research to you. But if there are any other myths or misunderstandings that you may have, this just requires maybe a simple online search, or you can always call customer service and we'll help you sort it out. When it comes to getting started, you have to figure out exactly what's in your way and how it is that you can get over it. The truth of the matter is, no matter what gets in your way, there's always a way to get over it, under it, through it, or around it. You just have to be committed, focused, and serious about getting started. The last thing I like to address is the fact that some people tend to listen to friends and family who may have your best interest at heart, and that's okay. The problem is, having your best interest at heart doesn't necessarily mean that they'll give the most sound advice. What do I mean? Well, every now and then I run across somebody who says, well, I have a friend or a cousin who told me, there's no money in that. Well, I don't know. We've pretty much went through some examples in the earlier topics, and I've also discussed the demand with you, and I've given you enough information to draw your own conclusion. What do you think? I also had someone say to me that somebody told them that they shouldn't do it because there's so many daycares around. Well, that's true, but is it sound advice? Well, I don't think so. When it comes to counting the number of daycares that you actually see, one should actually count the number of slots in each program. Remember that when it comes to these programs, they can be in fact storefront daycares, which are the ones that you see on the street. They can be family daycares, which means that the provider can actually have up to 7 children at one time. They can be group family daycares, which means that the provider can have up to 12 kids at one time. Or they can be small daycares, which are in-home daycares but can hold up to 35 children at one time, depending on the size of your space. With that being said, it's safe to say that although you may see 1,000 daycares, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's more than enough to go around. Getting started is primarily your decision, and it's entirely up to you. When I first decided to do these seminars, I was primarily basing it on the fact that I was 20 at the time that I started trying to run my own program, and there was more than enough help around to help me. I guess out of the fear of competition, I either got a no or just simply doors slammed in my face when I inquired. It was at that point that I made it my business to help anyone else who wanted to be helped. And I'm extending this opportunity to you. The only thing is, I can't make that decision for you. This has to be something that you decide to do on your own. And the only thing that I can tell you is to determine what it is that may be in your way and trying to find a way to get over it. If you need the help, we're here to help you. Call customer service at 1-800-246-9976 and ask them the questions. Address some of the myths or rumors or misunderstandings or the concerns you may have. I'm pretty confident that once you get a better understanding of what it is that's required of you and how you can get started, you'll find that this is definitely something that you want to get into.